Are you using SMS text messaging in your farm marketing strategy? Well, after today's episode, I have a feeling some of you are going to start. I know I'm thinking about it. I'm interviewing one of my friends, the founder of Farmhand, Ari, and he's going to be talking to you not only about his CSA platform, but also how they use SMS texting to great effect. Let's get started. Hey there, this is Corinna Bench, and welcome to the My Digital Farmer podcast. In today's market, it's not enough to just grow your product. You've got to know how to sell it too. Welcome to the My Digital Farmer podcast, where we reveal online marketing strategies and tips to help farmers like you get better and more confident at marketing. Learn how to find more customers, increase your sales, and build a strong brand for your farm. Let's start the show. Well, welcome to episode 263 of the My Digital Farmer podcast. I am your host, Corinna Bench, one of the farmers at Shared Legacy Farms out in Elmore, Ohio. I'm also the founder of MyDigitalFarmer.com, which is all about trying to help other farmers like you get more confident in your marketing and sales strategy so that you can grow a more profitable business. Welcome back to the show, all of my regular listeners. Big high five to you. And if you're new to the show, I'm so glad that you're here. Thanks for checking me out. If you enjoy today's episode, please go leave me a rating or a review or subscribe to my show, or even better, go check out some of my original episodes. I always tell people to go and listen to the first 10 because that's going to give you a good overview of the basics of marketing. Another place to learn the fundamentals, if you're kind of green when it comes to marketing, is to subscribe to my email list. Because when you do, I'm going to send you an email every week for like 3 months that's going to walk you through the marketing jungle and show you the key fundamental principles you need to know. I'm going to share some freebies, resources, gifts, templates with you, the people you should be following. It's really, really good. So you can get on my list by going to mydigitalfarmer.com/subscribe. Easy to remember. Today's podcast is sponsored by my friends at LocalLine. Well, it's here. LocalLine's own point of sale POS feature is now available. The LocalLine team has been committed to building the best sales software for farmers, producers, and food hubs, and payments are a huge part of that. Local Pay, which is LocalLine's own payment gateway, offers farmers an alternative to standard credit card processors like Stripe and Square. With Local Pay, you can save on credit card fees. You can accept ACH payments. And now you can even accept in-person payments with a POS device. They built this feature because not every transaction happens online. And as a LocalLine customer, you need a way to accept in-person payments, but keep your inventory in sync. Their point of sale feature is included with every LocalLine subscription, and you can purchase POS devices directly through LocalLine. Are you looking to switch to sales software that does it all? Because subscriptions to LocalLine start as low as $49 a month, everyone, with no setup fees or sales percentages. Plus, if you join LocalLine today, your onboarding manager will migrate your storefront at no cost. So you'll be able to be up and running in no time. We love LocalLine, highly recommend them. And as a bonus, as a podcast listener, LocalLine is offering a free premium feature for 1 year with your subscription when you sign up using my coupon code. So go to mydigitalfarmer.com/LocalLine and then enter the coupon code MDF2024. Make the switch today. Join LocalLine. And now back to the show. Okay, one of the new things that I'm doing now on the podcast is I am reading a testimonial from a podcast fan. And so today I'm reading an email that I received from Lynette Lawrence in Bay City, Texas. And this is an email I got, 6 months ago, and I stored it away in my testimonial folder on Gmail. so that I can read it when I feel like I need some encouragement. Here's what Lynette wrote. Just wanted to let you know, I came across your podcast this weekend. It just appeared in my app like manna from heaven. Oh, you're speaking to a youth minister here. I haven't stopped listening except for checking out some of Donald Millard's stuff that you mentioned. I'm going to look at some of your resources at lunch today. I still work full time, but we have a small flower farm in South Texas. We've been growing for a while, but just started selling for real. I'm already either putting to work or planning to put to work all that I'm learning from you. I'm sure loads of people have told you what an impact you are making. Add another one to the list. Lynette Lawrence. Well, thank you, Lynette. That is an awesome review. And everyone else who's listening, if you want to send me a review, you can head over to Apple Podcasts, drop a little comment in that section. I might end up reading it on the air, or you can send me an email to mydigitalfarmers@gmail.com, or you can even drop something snail mail and send it to my farm, which is Shared Legacy Farms. I'll let you have fun trying to figure out what my address is. Just go to my website and you can find it. All right, let's dive into today. I'm excited today to share this episode with you. I interviewed one of the founders of a software company, a CSA software platform called Farmhand. This is a relatively newer platform. I want to say they've only been around for a couple of years. And Ari, who's the founder, reached out to me just a few weeks ago, and I had not really heard about them, and I actually met with his assistant first. And I was really impressed with some of the things that they're doing. And I thought, yeah, let's put them on the podcast, because I feel I have a lot of CSA farmers that listen to me and that I know are looking for a new platform to kind of manage their different complicated memberships. And I think this is one that should be considered. And I have a feeling it's probably going to be growing and joining some of the ranks of the big ones out there. So we're going to talk in this interview, definitely talk about Farmhand and kind of what its claim to fame is. It has a very unique selling point, something that it does that none of the other CSA platforms do. So you are going to hear a little bit about that. But if you're not a CSA farmer, don't turn off the podcast, because there is a really good section in here. Actually, the bulk of the episode, and the reason I asked him on the show, was to come and talk to us about SMS texting and how they use it in Farmhand, or how they encourage their farmers to use it within their system. And these are principles that you can use in your marketing strategy, even if you don't have the Farmhand software system or a platform. So I really loved that part of the interview. That's actually the bulk of our conversation. So make sure that you listen to that, because you're going to get some ideas for the kinds of things that you could be texting your customers, why you might want to consider adding SMS to your strategy. We actually don't use it for our farm. And after our conversation today, I'm like, maybe I need to look into this and see if it's worth it for us, because I have a feeling that it would increase our sales, since the open rates are so incredibly high. So I need to kind of look into that. But I really enjoyed this episode. I think it's really practical. He's an excellent speaker, and you're going to get a lot out of this episode, even if you aren't a CSA farmer. So let me read his bio, and then we're going to jump into the interview. It's a little bit long, but it's so good. I had a hard time cutting stuff out. I hope you enjoy it. Today, my guest on the show is Ari Memar. As a hobby farmer in Sebastopol, California, Ari knows farming is more than just a job. It's a way of life. As stewards of our nature and local community, small farms are critical to our local community and food system, but often overmatched by the resources available: technology, equipment, sales and marketing teams, back office staff, to larger farms. So in partnership with local family farmers, Ari founded Farmhand to equip farmers with the technology and services they need to win back a local share of the food dollar and support a thriving local food system. You are going to love our conversation today. This is a really good one. Please join me in welcoming Ari to the show. Today's podcast is sponsored by Farm Marketing School. This is my monthly membership where farmers can come in and build marketing assets one at a time in special 30-day build projects that I've created for you. Right now, there are like 8 projects inside of Farm Marketing School, and every month a new one gets added. And you basically subscribe for 30 days, or you can stay in for a couple months or 3 months. You can stay in the whole year. But what you're doing is you go inside and you decide this is the project that I want to work on. You take the class, the workshop class that's recorded, you just watch it, and then you build it yourself. So this is the DIY version of Accelerator. There's no coaching element or mastermind or Zoom meetups. It's just you going in there, watching the class that the accelerators saw live with me, and then working on it on your own. So if you're a DIY type of person and you think you can do it yourself, this is an amazing resource. There are projects in there for how to build a promotion plan, how to build your email nurture sequence, how to write a great weekly email, how to build the website homepage messaging, what goes on that homepage, how to build a lead magnet, and more. So if you want to see what's in the Farm Marketing School, you can head to mydigitalfarmer.com/FMS. And I encourage you to subscribe for 1 month. Check it out. I have a whole onboarding, like a crash course in marketing that I encourage you to take in your first week. There's an assessment inside of there that's going to help you know which elements you should build first. It's so good. And I would love it if you would give it a shot for a month. Let me know what you think. And if you decide you like it, you can stay in there for several months in the off season and get a ton of your marketing stuff done. Well, Ari, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Corinna. Excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. I want you to start out by getting everyone on the same page. Tell my audience a little bit about who you are and your background, what you do, how you got to where you are now, wherever you want to start.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm from the Bay Area, was born in San Francisco to a mother who had a flower business and a landscape design business. She was very much a green thumb, introduced me to food, nutrition, backyard gardening. And then my dad was in tech. He was working at Hewlett Packard. And so for us, family time was eating, camping, backpacking, spending time outdoors, going to farmers markets. And so that was always kind of a part of my upbringing. I studied engineering. I went to UCLA, worked a corporate job, and then worked a startup job. And that startup job was at Uber. And so I was there during this kind of hyper growth period where Uber had just started the kind of ride sharing model. You could get out your app, order a car. You didn't have to be outside in the rain trying to hail a taxi. And it was expanding kind of across the world. And it was also expanding in terms of other things Uber was offering. And so that gave me a lot of exposure to building products, leading teams, watching something grow from kind of its infancy to something that's, quite mainstream. And during that experience, I ended up getting, the entrepreneurial bug. A lot of people I worked with had started companies or had, left to go start companies. And concurrently, I was living in San Francisco during COVID, which was not a particularly pleasant time to be in San Francisco. So I found myself wanting to make a lifestyle change as well. And so I moved out of the city about an hour and a half northwest of San Francisco, got onto 5 acres, started backyard gardening. I have a large orchard, and kind of through that experience, connected with a lot of farmers in my area, learned a lot more about the craft of growing. I was encountering like literal growing pains. It's, hard to do some of the things that you kind of take for granted. And through those conversations and experiences, I realized that there was a set of skills I had that actually farmers were potentially in need of. And so those were things like on the technology side, managing websites or creating websites, on the marketing side, creating flyers or kind of, things for your booth, or on the communication side, help with email newsletters, things like that. And so that ultimately started this kind of journey for myself to kind of, hey, like, is there something there? Could there be a company there? And that was kind of the impetus for starting Farmhand. And my idea was, could I just help farmers in a way where they can just focus on the growing, and I could help with all the other things? And so that was the idea for Farmhand. I felt like there was an opportunity for kind of a support system for small local growers that could help with all the non-farming stuff.
Okay, so why don't you, in a nutshell, try to describe what Farmhand is? Because you just sort of mentioned it, some of the things it can do, but like, what is it in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, it's a virtual assistant for farms. It can handle website, customer communications, back office admin work. And most importantly, you can just speak to it as you can like a farmhand or a member of your crew. you can text it, you can email it, and then it can do more complex workflows for you, like prepare newsletters, update your e-commerce shop, communicate to your customers. And so you can think of it as kind of an all-in-one farm management system that is also managed for you with a combination of people as well as AI.
Awesome. I was going to ask about AI. Maybe we'll get to that later because that's something that's blowing up. Um, I I want to talk a little bit more about like the impetus for starting Farmhand. So what problem did you set out to solve when you first started putting that dream together? Because there's a lot of softwares that are out there already that claim to help farmers with e-commerce and all of that stuff. So what were you trying to do that was different? Like what's setting it apart, you think, and should make farmers give it a second look?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of options out there and there's a ton of software. And I think overwhelmingly what I was observing, at least through the farmers I was talking with, is the learning curve for figuring out how to use these softwares, how to connect these softwares, how to do what appeared to be, simple things like an email newsletter, for instance, required you to do multiple things across multiple systems. So you were maybe managing an email list across like a clipboard at the market, as well as your sign up page on your website. And then you were creating, designed images that were going to go to make your newsletter a bit more visual. And then you were writing content and then you were formatting a template. And so all of these different pieces, add up. And there's some people who are experts in it or, love doing it. But then there's others who kind of see it as more of like a chore
Yeah.
and maybe just like an aspect of it. So maybe they just like the content, or maybe they just like taking pictures or whatever it is. And so overwhelmingly, what I saw was, farmers just wanted someone to do it for them in the way they wanted it. They wanted to have the strategy, have their voice, have control, but they didn't want to deal with the execution roadblocks along the way. And so for me, I felt like everything in the market, one, didn't allow you to kind of make changes easily. And like I said, I think there's nothing easier than texting or emailing or like speaking what you want to happen. It's like we all kind of learned to do that growing up. So it's quite natural. There's no videos you need to watch. Second is I felt the breadth of what you needed to provide needed to be broader because for most people, like you want to get customers. And so if you want to get customers, there's an element of like print marketing or online marketing that you need in place. But then you also need like the workflow for how they actually can like sign up or buy or whatever it is. And then you've got the communications tied to them just to make sure like they understand what they bought and they can get what they bought. So, and then you need like the designs and kind of like marketing aesthetics. So there was a lot of different pieces. And I just didn't see anyone kind of completing that chain for farmers. And then, I think to an extent, a lot of these systems aren't necessarily approachable either from an ROI or cost standpoint. So for me, it was important that this was something that anyone, even if they're earlier on their farm business journey, could like get at a cost effectiveness that was more similar to maybe some of the like small business tool sets that were available. Like think of your Squarespace, MailChimp,
Yeah.
relatively cheap to start, but obviously harder to use and kind of get going. So yeah, I think my basic analogy would be I wanted to give farmers a ready to ride vehicle. I did not want them to be mechanics setting up all these different parts and being like specialized in doing it, all the
Mm.
while trying to, run a production farm, which we all know is more than a 40-hour a week job.
Yeah. Well, and what I talk about all the time is that marketing, if you are kind of a DIY and you're taking that role on yourself, like it is a skill set you have to learn. If you
Definitely.
want to be a successful business, you can't just grow the product. You've also got to sell it. And that means setting up, yeah, these workflows and systems and visual designs and all, thinking through all of that. And you're right, for a lot of farmers, that feels like a really heavy lift. They have no desire to do it. They avoid it. And so it sounds like what you're providing is a little bit of a shortcut. Like it's, hey, I'll do a lot of that work for you. But they still have to provide the parameters, right? They have to give
Exactly.
the vision and they're definitely a part of the initial conversations and there's feedback, kind of like a feedback loop.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right.
And in fact, a lot of my customers, similar to myself, are like listeners of this podcast and listeners and content consumers of other great, digital marketing resources out there for farmers. And what I came to learn is like the strategy, like everyone's excited about it, right? Like they want to do this new marketing flyer, they want to do this new, email sequence, they want to do all these different things. But then practically, like there's an issue with the irrigation line, or there's something that's time sensitive,
Yep.
kind of on the production side, or there's something else that all of a sudden happens, and then those types of things just naturally like don't happen, or maybe you actually spend the time to do it, and you're like, man, it's like way harder to make a QR code than I thought, or like at least just these
Mm-hmm.
tiny little things that like get in your way. And so from my perspective, I'm like, how can I just take that idea you have and then actualize it faster, right? So you're just more focused on the fun stuff.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's riff here for a little bit because I want you to talk um, about some of the features that are actually inside of Farmhand, the software, especially when it comes to the marketing services. Like, let's just imagine a farmer's looking at it. They're actually inside the platform. They're taking a look at what are some of the things that I can actually do in here. If you're going to do a lot of the work for them, what does that actually look like? So just kind of give me some of the highlights reel here.
Yeah, so I think for most farms, they're getting their customers either online or offline. So online is typically like social media or Google search, and then offline is typically like market or farm stand. And so for us, we kind of think of our job is to help farms get, keep, delight, kind of grow revenue from their customers. And for me, that really starts with what I kind of call the foundations, which is a high quality like website that tells your story, that tells like your local audience more about why this is not a commodity product. Like this is a connection you're building with the farmer. This is some education about what we grow, how we grow, and we're local. And so if I'm searching for you, I can find you. It's got the right kind of SEO under the hood. It's laid out to work well on mobile and on desktop. More and more web traffic is now kind of trending towards mobile. And it's highly visual. So it's got tons of pictures. It's got, the right amount of words, but not too many words. And it's got the right kind of pages to feature the different aspects of your business, like let's say a CSA, kind of a dedicated landing page for a CSA. So I think the website is foundational. I think if you're a business in year 2024, like you need a professional website. And if someone's going to swipe their credit card, like it needs to look like you're in business, you're professional, you are who you are. Then on the second piece is like once you have these customers, you have to communicate with them, both in terms of when they're ordering and they're kind of in your kind of order workflow, but also when they're not yet ordering. Like they want to learn about you, they want to build that connection, they want to become like your fans, but that doesn't just happen like with one communication. That usually happens with consistent communications over time. And so we help with a kind of weekly or monthly email newsletter, whatever frequency you run it. And then similarly, we will, prepare a professional template for you. It'll be designed to visually tell the story, to tell the story in a kind of like a structured way. Normally, I always suggest like story at the top, production availability, like well, what are you growing? What do you have? How to use it, usually like a recipe. And then like an upsell, what's the goal of this communication? What are you trying to get people to do? So I kind of call that foundations across like the website and the communications. And then we go deeper into different workflows. So like CSA being kind of our primary focus, where a customer can sign up for the CSA. You can configure your CSA however you operate it, farmer's choice boxes, market style pickups, et cetera. Maybe you do pickups, maybe you do home deliveries. We support, both modes. Maybe you offer pay-as-you-go plans. Maybe people have to pay for the whole season. So similarly on the payment side, a lot of flexibility. And then as customers sign up, they then are able to get the entire like workflows built for CSAs. So when customers first sign up, they get a handbook, a member handbook, kind of inspired by a lot of the things that you've shared. And that handbook has a lot of the important, information they need and is kind of acts as their user manual. And then through the ordering process, week to week, they're receiving reminders to, add things to their order from the value added shop. They're receiving reminders when things are ready for pickup. We use SMS for those reminders because that can be very effective to make sure people, don't forget or are prompted. And then we initiate, special upsells. So maybe you've got something that, tomatoes for canning, Mother's Day flower bouquets, whatever it may be. So we can initiate those upsells to those customers as well. And then we provide customer service across that whole kind of experience. So, all the emails we send, all the text messages we send, the customers can respond to it. They can also respond in the application itself. And as acting as that first line of customer service, we can resolve a bunch of the issues because a lot of them are pretty basic, like just confirming pickup details, account management questions. And in other cases, we can just organize and make sure the farmer gets the important kind of items they need to follow up on. Yeah, so that's kind of, and then on the farmer side, we've got all the, fulfillment reports like pick, pack, deliver, reports. So it really is a complete kind of end-to-end solution for CSA. Similarly, we have the same thing for wholesale. We have the same thing for, farm stand, farmers market, online pre-orders, like an e-commerce shop. But what I'll also say is one thing that's unique about what we do is we're also trying to get you customers. So on the marketing services side, what I've found works really well is we also help with the Google business profile, and we also help with print marketing flyers. So the Google business profile and the combination of SEO on the website, I think is a nice 1-2 punch for online traffic from Google search. And then the marketing flyer, I think works really well. When you're at the market or at the farm stand, it can be busy. People don't necessarily have the time to talk, but just a reminder to hey, come to the website. Here's what we're offering. We provide recipes every week. Join our email list or join our CSA, early bird pricing special, or we offer this flexibility, week to week payments, whatever the kind of value prop is. And then we also help with social media post contents and schedules. So yeah, it's kind of a lot, but I think it's important because all those things, play a role.
Yeah. So when you say you help, are you writing it or are you putting the outline together? Are you giving them a template and they have to still go in and actually write it? What does that mean?
So we have two different models of actually creating the content. One is farmers will give us bullet points. So these are the things I want to feature. And then we'll actually generate the content written out, hashtags, or written out with images. And then in some other cases, farms are writing the content themselves, and then we're more enriching it with slight, adjustments. It really doesn't matter from our perspective. We kind of follow the stylistic preferences of how farmers want to operate, because some are just super busy. They're I don't know this, I don't care about this, just help me get to what I should post or what I should write. And then others are they're really protective of the voice and how they say things. And for them, it's more about just making sure the parameters are right, the hashtags are added, or the actual template itself is filled in and kind of visually looks correct.
Yeah. Now you talked about yourself almost like a virtual assistant for farms.
Exactly.
So are you tapping them if they don't reach out to you every week and you're hey, you got to send an email. What do you want in your social media this week? Is that happening or?
Exactly. I think for most of our newer customers, it's a lot more, they are providing the feedback on our prompts. So we're sending the weekly reminders, and then that's the kind of signal to hey, it's time to think about this. Okay. But I think for those customers that have been with us for a lot longer, they oftentimes are starting to push things because they're thinking about special promotions, or they're adding things to their offering. And so they're immediately okay, I need Farmhand to help me do this. So I think it changes based on kind of where you are in your journey of working with us. But I would say the majority of people are being prompted on kind of weekly reminders.
Yeah, but what's neat about that is that after a few reps and cycles of, I don't want to say years. I don't know how long it would take. It's probably different for every farmer, but you're basically teaching them these are the most important things you got to do by prompting them, right?
Yes.
If you're prompting them with the same 5 things over and over and over again, eventually you're training them that these are the things that matter. And they kind of end up internalizing what that marketing strategy and system needs to look like, right? So instead of just saying, good luck, I hope you can do it on your own, it's like, I'm going to hold your hand and I'm going to do it for you at first. And until it's so second nature to you that this feels really easy. And I'll keep doing it for you. I'll keep holding your hand if you need, but eventually maybe they can even like let go, or they can begin to feel more comfortable knowing how to kind of move the right dials, right? To make things happen.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it is a very like iterative process in the sense that like you produce content, you put it out, and immediately like you see how your customer base responded to it. So I think there's the natural feedback loop where as it's becoming more consistent, as it's becoming more professional, as it's becoming higher quality, you're also hearing about it from your customers. So it's very typical that like
Yeah.
on like a CSA pickup day, someone mentions the newsletter or mentions something that was posted on social media, which then reinforces like, oh, okay, like that was probably a good idea, what I sent, or
Hmm.
like this is clearly valuable. It's coming up again and again. So it becomes easier to make it into a habit. But
Right.
yeah, for most people, it's hard to build it into a habit. I mean, as with forming any habit, like you need to do it
Yep.
over a certain period of time before it
Right.
becomes the norm.
Right. 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 What are some of the things that your member farmers in Farmhand are actually doing to market their CSAs with your software? I know you've mentioned some of them, but I don't know if there's some innovative things you want to bring up, or just maybe in general, what you see.
Yeah, I think, for most people, I think everyone's trying to grow their CSA program. If you have the luxury of like, I'm sold out every year, I am not going to grow, kudos to you. You probably don't need to listen to this. But for most of my customers, they don't have big budgets, right? So they're not, advertising or traditional advertising is not really one of the options they're looking at. They're looking for ways that they can get customers that are kind of in the process of things they're already doing or can do easily without additional cost. So I think, the farmer's market and farm stand is always the first place I point to, just because like everybody's raised their hand and said, hey, I care about local food, and they've showed up. So that is such a huge opportunity to get customer information because, most of those customers, if it's, their first time there, or maybe they buy sporadically, they're buying like 10, 15, $20 worth of stuff. And then maybe you don't hear from them, or maybe you don't even speak to them. And maybe they didn't even chat with you, right? Like they never met the farmer. They never heard the story. Like they just saw something and bought it, and it probably tasted good, but that was kind of the extent of your relationship. So for me, it's really important, how can you get that customer's information? How can you get their email? How can you get their phone? Some people feel like a clipboard at the market is like a little bit, less invasive than like a point of sale, prompt
Hmm.
that then captures their information. Some people feel more so of like a flyer that you hand out that kind of has a QR code and can route people
Right.
to the website, and then sign up, or to go to the CSA page and buy. I think that's kind of a stylistic preference for what the farmer prefers. But I think the most important thing is every interaction you have, you're giving them a prompt to join your, communication list. That's kind of like the key takeaway. And you can do that with a lot of different strategies. I think providing weekly recipes is a great strategy. Come join my email list to get weekly recipes. I think, any sort of incentive for like, hey, if you sign up, we're going to throw in some extra value added items. Like that's a great incentive. People like incentives. Or limited time, if you join now, you're getting this early bird pricing. I mean, you can think of different ways that you want to, create that urgency. But I think that the physical location you are, where you're interacting with customers that clearly like want your product, like that's a great place to start. But online as well, I think, there's a huge opportunity there. And, if you've got the website, if you've got the physical presence, if you've built an email list, or you have, some amount of customers you're transacting with, then I think that's where the email newsletter becomes tremendously impactful. And, every single time we send an email newsletter, I pretty much observe across a large data set that people are buying. They're buying CSAs, they're buying from the farm stand. Like if you send the communication, like it does prompt people to do something. So I think that is is critical to have as a part of like your toolkit of communicating with your customers. And I kind of just at a very basic level, like view it as like a math equation where if you are interacting with enough people, both physically and online, then if you have those systems in place, like you're probably going to get enough customers just from doing that. But in some cases, people may not be interacting with enough customers because maybe they're only going to one smaller market or they don't really have a farm stand. So now you're like, okay, I got to do something to get in front of more people.
Right.
So if you're trying to get in front of more people, then you have to get a bit more creative. And I've seen, on the online kind of community building side, lots of different, local groups be super effective, like, homeschool pods, PTA groups, like nutritionists, small businesses. I mean, you're really just trying to get into other people's distributions, both physically and digitally, where people can share your offer. And it's like a trusted, vetted person in the local community that's sharing your offer. And yeah, there's just a lot of people who care about local food and care about local farms and care about nutrition and care about the environment. So whatever angle you're kind of taking, I think those individual community members who have access to Facebook groups, email lists, or home offices are incredibly effective. And if you're doing like distributed pickup sites, like you can get kind of crafty there where you're like, hey, we'll give the office staff like a box, right? Like we'll do a trade, like we'll give you a box. Then you can like, leave some marketing materials out. We'll make it a pickup point. Or maybe you've got a CSA member who's like a photographer or like a nutritionist or something. And so like they're getting some sort of benefit and then they can kind of share it within their circles. So yeah, and in the spirit of like things that you don't have to pay for, barter, local community, like that's kind of the strategies I see people taking. And yeah, they take time, like they're not easy, but like once you establish them, they're like incredibly effective and they're free technically.
Yeah. Okay, well, I actually asked you onto the show when we first met. You were talking all about the different things Farmhand could do. And one of the things that I loved was that it does SMS texting as part of its just bread and butter features.
Right.
And I don't currently use SMS. I don't talk about it much on the show. I think I have one episode about SMS texting in all 200 and whatever I have right now. And so we're going to spend some time chatting about that. You're going to give us some kind of principles to follow if we want to begin to add that into our business. But first, I want you to make the case to me about why farmers should be adding SMS to their marketing strategy and how does it work?
Yeah, I think SMS is kind of this thing that a lot of people don't realize how impactful it can be because they maybe don't have the context of the challenges with email and the benefits of SMS. So I think you kind of got to start by understanding like the state of email. Email itself is like overwhelmingly going down in effectiveness. And that's mainly because less people are opening emails. The open rate, I think, is like 20%-ish. Less people are clicking on emails. There's lots of spam. I mean, we all deal with that firsthand. Like the average person is getting like 100 plus emails per day. And yeah, it's just not a great way to send out something that's urgent and kind of cuts through the noise because you're like one of 100. You're not really gonna stand out. And I'm not just and don't take this as like don't use email. I'm just stating like these are kind of like aggregate facts. And obviously some people perform better than these aggregate facts. On the text message side, what kind of makes this unique is by law, like you cannot just send a text message unsolicited to someone. So people need to actually opt in to receiving text messages from you, which you can do through your website or point of sale system or kind of wherever you're capturing the opt-in. But that in and of itself, like kind of protects that channel. And then on top of that, SMS actually like costs money to send. I mean, it's like fractions of a cent, but it's like real money so that these like robotic spammers, if they were to send millions of SMS messages, like it would actually be kind of expensive. So people don't really use it that way. And text messages, when you send them, are opened like 98% of the time, and they're opened like very quickly. And so if you use text messages for marketing, that means you're going to see, open rates in the 90% instead of in the 20 to 30% with emails. You're also going to see click-through rates in the, closer to 20% versus like 2%. So that's like an incredible lift in terms of reaching people and having people engage with your marketing content. And on top of that, from a consumer standpoint, like customers actually want SMS. Like they like it. Like it's like an easy way to get the information quickly. You can think of maybe the more typical ways you've got it, maybe like a reminder from the doctor or like a reminder for your, dinner reservation, like things like that that are pretty easy for you to, get the right information.
Yeah, and let's not forget, like your ROI is going to go up, right? Like if you have higher open rates and higher click-through rates, then that means you're going to make more sales.
That's right.
So,
Yeah, those
yeah.
are the proxy metrics for sales.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so are there any like legalities and rules about how you can use SMS texting? Like can you get in trouble for spamming people? Like I'm thinking about, I use ManyChat and I know they have this like rule about 24-hour promotion windows from the time a person signs up. You can't like send a promo after 24 hours. Like, so are there rules like that around SMS?
Well, there's really not like a practical limit on how many text messages you can send. I think each carrier may have certain limits where, like, if you're really sending a bunch of things quickly, it would like block it. But within the context of how farmers are using SMS and how I've been accustomed to using SMS, it's really like unrestricted. And
Okay.
customers can respond back to any SMS and just say stop. And that
Right.
immediately like blocks them from receiving any more messages from that number. So they kind of have that protection. And then, like if you're on iPhone, on Apple, I think they've got like another button like that's like junk that kind of, more or less works the same way. If you're receiving something from like an unknown contact that's not in your contact card. But like technically you can send a lot of messages, but you're kind of running the risk of like if you over message or if you send a bunch of messages in a short period of time, like that may overwhelm the customer and they may just want to like silence it. So that's kind of more the risk you're trying to manage, which is like, can I send the communications where it's not so frequent that it's, accepted versus it's so frequent that it feels, over the top, like I want to make it stop. And I think that sweet spot ends up being like, 2 to 3 messages a week. Probably not more than like one daily, unless there's something that unexpected happened, emergency, delay, truck got a flat, bad weather, like you need to send something out quickly.
Right.
But usually most people are sending just a few messages a week.
Well, and you're able in these different apps and probably on Farmhand too, like you're able to segment your audience a little bit too, right? So you're
Exactly.
not blasting everyone with the same offer. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about some specific use cases for texting then. Can you share, I don't know, 3 ways that farmers are actually using texting right now in their business?
Yeah. So I think the first one that really comes to mind, I'll call it like urgent recurring updates. So you can think of these as reminders for order deadlines. You can think of these as pickup reminders. And in our system, we usually send about 24 to 48 hours before the order deadline, a text message, very short, with just like a prompt to uh, add things to your order. If you need to manage your subscription, if you allow pause, cancels, skips, etc., like you can take those actions. Some people, change pickup days or locations. Um, and that prompt, letting people know, like, hey, you have to do this. There's this deadline. Even though most people are in that routine, people forget, they go on vacation, new members come, they're not familiar with how it works. Those reminders are really effective because it communicates like, this is what you need to do, this is the deadline to do it, and then you just receive the text and you can take that action. So that to me works really well. And then on pickup days, everybody has these really creative like pickup site locations. Sometimes you get to the address and then you got to like walk behind the barn and then you end up and find like where the actual like pickup site is located, or maybe it's like a private, host address and like they put the boxes in a certain spot. Or maybe like you're doing home deliveries and it's really hot out, so you want people to leave out coolers. Maybe you've got wax boxes that need to be reused. Like there's all these different scenarios, right, that kind of go alongside the pickup experience. So again, like the right time to communicate these things are when it's time to pick up. Like that's when people are gonna read it, see it, and like take action on it. So right before the pickup window starts, we also send an SMS with that information, with custom pickup instructions. And like you said, it may be segmented because the home delivery customers may get something different than the pickup customers. And even the pickup customers may get different things because they're picking up from different sites.
Yeah.
So that becomes a really effective tool to just make sure like you're reusing your boxes, like you're not getting quality spoilage issues, you're not getting confused customers who can't like find the pickup site. So that's a really effective, tactic for doing that. The second bucket I'd say is like the urgent, unexpected issues. So here you could think of weather, disease, pests, flat tire on the truck. I say unexpected, but like they're kind of expected, like they happen every year, but hopefully they don't happen this year. And in those contexts, you're usually trying to communicate like, hey, this order is going to be delayed. It's a few hours late. People are expecting it at 11 a.m. It's looking like it's going to be more like 2 p.m. So that's a really effective channel to just communicate to those impacted, hey, the schedule has shifted, unexpected. Similarly, maybe there's something in someone's order that's no longer going to be there. And so the only people impacted are the customers who ordered the eggs because like there was something wrong with the hens that week. So like the eggs didn't, come as expected. So again, similarly, segment to those and just communicate to those people what has happened. And then the third opportunity I'd say is kind of more on like the flash sales is kind of the way I brand them. So think of like you've got time sensitive perishable items. There's this moment in time, maybe it's like the season, maybe it's a holiday, and you're trying to sell this overage or you're trying to sell something that's kind of limited. And so again, that works really, really well for a focused offer. We've got extra tomatoes for canning. Like, here's the price. Come get it. Only this left. Act now.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the three buckets that I see kind of most customarily used. And I think with the special promotion context, you can also actually like make it visual. So a lot of times when people think of text messages, they think text, that's it, right? But we use emojis. I think emojis are great. Like they break up the text block and kind of it's like you can have the little symbol for like pickup instructions and like recycle, like all those different little symbols. And then you can also add images, and images work really well for flash sales. So it's like if you're going to sell the extra tomatoes or you're going to sell a flower bouquet, like let's show what it looks like, right? So coupling those two things together, I think works really effectively for promotions.
Awesome. What about just how you actually like how do they work? So how do you set up the infrastructure to be able to use text messages effectively?
Yeah, so it can be fairly complicated. I'll walk through the process, but kind of in our context at Farmhand, we kind of remove that complexity. So like all the farmer has to do is just initiate like send this promotion or the truck's delayed, and then we kind of cascade those workflows. But for those interested in kind of doing it themselves, foundationally, you need a way to get the opt-in to use text message, which can be done when people are buying from you or when they're signing up for the email newsletter. You can add, an option to also collect phone. Then you need an application that kind of lets you send text messages on this like scheduled basis or these like tagged or segmentation bases. Then you need to kind of adapt like the way you write content copy for this text message format, which is like short, punchy, gets to the point, probably uses emojis because, works a little bit better. And then in some cases, you may need some, photos or visual design or, pieces like that if you're doing the kind of flash sale workflow. And yeah, like that, once you have those pieces in place, then, through those applications, you can send text messages with those, custom content with the custom rules on the schedule. But yeah, you're going to have to like kind of do some of that infrastructure work ahead of time to like have that ready and synced with like the state of like your customers and their orders and all those things.
Right. So what are some of the things that you've been doing in Farmhand to um, get some effective promotions here through SMS? What have you been experimenting with?
Yeah, so we've actually done a lot of pretty cool things. I think we kind of started with more of like at the basic level, like there's X amount of, flower bouquets left, or there's X amount of this good left. You can click on this link and buy it, and then it's sold out and it's limited time. But what's interesting is you can actually make it even easier for customers. Like they don't ever have to actually go to like a traditional like e-commerce experience to buy something. If you've got their payment info on file, and if you've got their customer information, like their email, their phone number on file, then they can actually initiate purchases just through a reply to the SMS. So I think this opportunity for like two-way SMS is kind of like just starting. And you can think of this as a type of buy that's more of like an impulse buy, and something
Mhm.
that you can buy by just saying like yes, or like 1, 2, 3, 4 in the amount you want. And so we started kind of trying that out and seeing what the response rate would be, and it's, as you can expect, like even better than just like any e-commerce traditional cart experience. And we also started experimenting with like, could you then pile on more things? So like when people are responding yes or 1, 2, 3, 4, they're buying more things. And I think a classic example would be something like a salsa kit, right? So you can like tell people about, oh, hey, like you can use tomatoes to make salsa, and like buy the onions and buy the peppers and buy the herbs or whatever else, and force people to like add all those things to their cart and like buy it off of like something you shared in the email newsletter. Or you could just brand it as like a salsa kit and charge the aggregate price of all of those things together, and explain that there's a recipe alongside it. And in that impulse buy, people can just look at it and say, oh, I want to make salsa. Like it's in season. That sounds fun. Like, yes, right? So you can immediately see how those types of tactics can work a bit better. They just take like the time to kind of curate the offer and take a look at like what you can kind of put together, where the parts together could be worth more than the individual parts themselves. And then this channel ends up being really effective for selling that offer.
Yeah, and I love how you can follow up a yes with another yes, right? Like make it
Right.
when somebody's in a yes buying mode, they're more likely to keep saying yes. So,
Right.
um, that's brilliant. What are some of the downsides of SMS texting, if there, I mean, if there are any? Like, what doesn't it let you do? What are the limits?
I'd say the biggest downside is because of the format, it's really hard to communicate a lot of things, or it's really hard for people to uh, like initiate complex, purchases or complex changes. So, as an example, like if somebody is building a shopping cart or like customizing their CSA, and there's a bunch of things that are changing, it's probably easier to just do that like in an application or in a like more traditional e-commerce experience, versus like trying to develop like an SMS like phone tree equivalent, where it's like if someone does this then that, like that just ends up being super complicated and probably not as easier for the consumer as well. Additionally, if it's more like a long form content, so a lot of times when people are sharing farm updates, it's like a couple paragraphs or there's additional context, and it's accompanied with maybe multiple pictures. That kind of again starts to break the structure of SMS, because it's really not intended to be like a newsletter or like a longer form update. It's more, like I said, like short, punchy, to the point. So again, that doesn't work as well. And then, the third is, there's still a lot of customers out there. I'm always surprised, but there's still a lot of customers out there that are older, and, they're still on landlines. They've still got you know, maybe they got email, but like they're just not texting. So in that case, that's not the perfect channel for them. But overall, I think for the majority of cases, it's very effective, specifically urgent reminders, or like urgent sales, focus sales. I think those are the like two areas where it really excels.
Now, if somebody is sending a text through Farmhand, are they then having to pay like the additional amount of money that it's costing them to send those texts, or is there
No,
like a certain like
that's
a
wrapped into the
quota?
cost. Yeah,
Okay, so
that's
there's a
wrapped into the cost.
okay. So I was just thinking, I don't really think of texting necessarily as a platform where you would be doing a lot of relational connection stuff either. That's more of maybe the strength of email. But like if you had some really big news that you just wanted to cascade out to everyone, like, our dog just had puppies or I just had a baby or whatever, like, or the first sweet corn's been planted. Like that's always a big thing that we highlight. Like you could just send that out with no call to action to buy anything, if you really wanted to, I suppose too.
Yeah, you definitely could. And I think one important distinction as well is a lot of times, customers are more used to SMS being one way. So one way meaning, again, like the dinner reservation you made. Like if you respond, like nothing happens, right? It's
Right.
just like you're set for 6 p.m. on Friday. But when it's two way, it's now actually also like the easiest way for them to initiate customer support or say like I'm excited, like that's
Mm-hmm.
awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're sending these updates, whether it's like someone just signed up for the CSA or just picked up or like there was some news that was shared, a lot of people are responding. And so it is an easier way, I think, to get just like unsolicited like kudos, like, oh, I loved what was in this week's box or this, whatever, the green garlic was amazing, whatever it was. Like people, it's just easier for them to like send a quick text than to do something else.
Yeah. So get ready for your phone to blow up, everyone.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. If you're going to send it, like more responses for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Okay, so should we be relying solely on SMS or I mean, is this an either or conversation?
I don't like picking one or the other. I'm definitely like a omnichannel, like the more the merrier kind of person. And the reason being is, like I said, like weekly email newsletter for farm story update, product availability, product education, recipes, etc. Like I think the email newsletter is the best. I don't think there's a better vehicle for that type of communication. But then order reminders, order updates, flash sales, I think SMS is the best. Like I don't think there's a better solution out there. And if you were to actually say like voice was also an option, like for those older customers, like that's just something like I'm seriously considering is like, can I just send like the automated call voicemail thing as like a reminder to some of the older customers? Because, if things change, like that is potentially easier for them to get a call, right? So the more of these modalities you have, like the more I think flexible and catered it can be to different audiences because some people like in my generation, like a lot of people don't like picking up the phone. Like you see a phone call, you're like, I'm not going to pick it up, but we love texting. So like we text all the time, right? Like that's kind of more so what we
Mhm.
prefer. And like on email, like we're like, okay, but like our email inboxes are like spammed. But then there's others who are like, they don't really want to give their phone number out as much. Like they prefer email. And then there's others who, they don't even have an email and they can't even text. Like they're just on the landline. So the more options you have, I think the more diverse of customer segments you can serve and the more your information gets into their hands effectively.
Yeah. Can you recommend a couple of SMS texting apps? I mean, I know that you're going to say Farmhand, but like if somebody isn't going to sign up for Farmhand,
Yeah.
like what are some other standalone SMS services that they could be checking out that you like? I'm sure you have a list of favorites.
Yeah, I'd say probably the two I like the best would be Twilio and Text Magic. Those were the two that we've kind of leaned on and built, some infrastructure around. Additionally, like some people who are already set up with an email marketing tool, whether it be like MailChimp or Square, those are pretty common ones that a lot of people use. Uh, they do now offer SMS as like usually add-on upgrades. Sometimes they'll even include like some amount of free messages. So if you don't want to like learn a new system and you already have those systems, like that's something you could probably, watch a video or two on in terms of like how to set it up. But yeah, to your point earlier, like if you want to avoid the complexity, then, Farmhand is a great option because it gives you that without having to have you learn how to do it.
Yeah. What is the fee structure for Farmhand? Like, how are you? Is this a percentage thing or is it a monthly payment subscription for a farmer?
Yeah, so today we have two kind of pricing plans. One is starter and then one is plus. The starter gives you the like e-commerce, the CSA, the wholesale, kind of more of like those modules, but it doesn't give you the custom website and then the custom email newsletter and some of the additional kind of marketing
Okay.
support and assets around it. And so for the plus, it's $40 a month. For the starter, it's zero. Obviously, that's a really attractive like entry point. So we need to like continue to pay for the service we're providing, and we've got costs like, for instance, sending text messages,
Hmm.
providing customer support, and so we wrap that in the transaction fee. And the reason why we chose to wrap it in the transaction fee is because through using Farmhand, we believe very confidently based on the results we've seen, like you're going to sell more. And so if we tie it to the transaction fee and you're seeing more sales, then it's kind of a win-win where you can offset the transaction fee cost. And so we take about 3% on a transaction, and then we also have to pay for the payment processing, which normally is between 3 to 4%. So yeah, that's our kind of structure right now.
Got it. Um, I have a couple final questions before we wrap up because we're running out of time. This has been so
Oh,
fun. Are there some innovative ways that you're seeing farmers using texting in their business? I know you've shared a few, but can you think of a few other ones?
I think the biggest innovation that I see coming is kind of building on top of what I shared with you earlier, which is it being a two-way conversational channel. So, there's lots of different things you can initiate workflows for based off of like a very simple text response. And so, one example that I provided earlier is like you say yes or like 1, 2, 3, 4 to buy something. And then that thing you buy is like an individual item, or maybe it's a salsa kit, or it's like a bundle. I think the bundles is kind of like the big opportunity if people can come up with more creative ways to like organize the items they have into compelling offers. But there's also the whole kind of realm of like support workflows. So if people want to skip an order, just, messaging skip, or if they want to change a pickup location, they can just do, change pickup location. And so these kind of workflows that like previously people had to go into an application, click a bunch of buttons, figure out how to do something, and then like do it can actually just be initiated off of very simple like keyword prompts. And so kind of the direction that we're going with Farmhand is, again, like trying to make it as easy for our farmers and for their customers. And so how can we allow these keywords to do more of the heavy lifting? And so we've started with kind of the initial like buying and some of the customer support. But I do see that kind of expanding in terms of like the types of customer support things you can do and the types of kind of marketing upsells you can do. And then the other thing is like a lot of people get like creative roadblocks where they're like, I don't know, like I'm just growing the same stuff every year. Like I don't know how to like freshen it up on year 7, like how do I make it exciting? And so a part of what we're trying to do as well is like, can we just take like we know what you have inventory wise, we know what you're growing just from our normal kind of interaction with you. Can we just take what you have and then based on what we observe across like what other farmers are doing, what the market's doing, what people are searching for, like how do we take what you have and then turn it into an offer? Like without you even
Mm,
knowing that like you have this idea for an offer, but just with our kind of like market intelligence of everything that's going on the internet, everything that's going around like within commerce that we're seeing, and present you with some of these offer opportunities, right? And
mm,
so then you can then say, oh, I like that one. Like, let's do that one. So again, like even less things for you to, have to creatively come up with. Some people like yourself are like incredibly creative. Like every time I listen to your podcast, I'm like, wow, that's like such a good idea. I never thought of that. But some people, they hit roadblocks. Like it's
yeah.
hard to come up with ideas. And so this, I think, can also become potentially a huge source of like new ideas, and then it becomes more of like an approval or like revised workflow than an actual come up with the offer workflow.
That would be so helpful because you're right. A lot of times people just can't even come up with the offer idea or the workflow idea. And if you're in a unique situation because you have the ability to look at all of the different farms that are a part of your network, and you can kind of, I guess you could sort of look at their data and be like, I noticed that this farm did this and it did awesome. And, this was a great offer that I see many of these farms trying. What if we made everyone aware of it? Um, I don't know how many platforms actually take the time to look at the data from their partners, but there could be some really great trends and patterns and data in there that other people could benefit from. I know you probably have some privacy limits. You can't do certain things, but in general, you could probably make um, some recommendations. I have a question about AI.
Yeah.
Um, so are you using AI to help you with some of this stuff? I would imagine that if you aren't yet, that you could in the future, and it would really help with taking, the requests of farmers and being able to quickly just generate beautiful copy or ideas from it. And if you aren't using AI yet, like where do you see AI potentially helping out in the future?
Yeah, so I think the first answer is yes, we're using it, and we're using it in a way where there's still kind of a human in the loop reviewing
Hmm.
it or initiating the workflows. A lot of times when people think of AI, they may think of like those robotic droids that are like about to, take over and
Hmm.
destroy humanity.
Yeah.
That's not so much like how I'm looking at it.
It's
And also
not
like there's
creepy.
yeah, also there's like all these like weird businesses coming out where it's like, oh, it's like this AI, like it's gonna replace like the creative director who's making the movie. And it's like, well, probably not anytime soon. Or it's gonna replace this or that. And when I look at AI, I'm like, really like, can it just replace the work that I don't want to do? Right. Like
Hmm.
the admin workflows or like the extra 6 clicks, the buttons, the like proofreading, like there's a lot of things that just take time. And you're like, this is not particularly that complicated. I can explain how I want it done. And can it just like do it like faster than I was doing it? So that's kind of the way that we look at it. And I think a classic example is like every single time someone is adding like a farm product to their e-commerce shop, like do they really need to like add pictures and write descriptions and like explain what it is when like we know all the different types of
Yeah.
varieties of lettuce, we know what they look like we know all these different things, like they just want to say like add whatever Salanova lettuce, like $3 a head, whatever it is, like add it to my store. And like maybe they do want to provide their own picture, maybe they do want to write their own description, but for a lot of people, like they're going to have an item, then it's not going to be there. So like, can we just make that workflow like easier and faster? Or like the same thing around, creating, certain content, like writing content where
Social media even, yeah.
social media content, whatever it is, it's like, yes, you can use like chat GPT and like probably some people have, and they've gone in and it's like, hey, help me write this. And like that works decently well, but it also like makes mistakes. But the more you can kind of tune it to the actual style you want it. So like
Hmm.
only look at previous newsletters that have been written by this farmer, or only look at newsletters that farmers have written, or only look at these types of recipes, then the more accurate it gets because it's being trained off of like a good example. So I think that's the biggest difference in terms of like if you just use chat GPT or like AI broadly, like you're gonna get a a response that's reflective of like the internet entirely. So it's like, okay, and maybe it's fine. But if you actually like focus it on a certain type of content or a certain very specific workflow, it can actually give you the desired results, right? And so that's about how you kind of set up the model, how you train it, how you build the workflow. And that's kind of more the opportunity I see is like these very, very specific workflows, trying to make it so they're just easier and easier. And our process is like, because we have a human reviewing things, we have a sense of how good the quality is, right? So like if it's not quality, then we know we got to fix the model and we got to continue to tune that.
Hmm.
Or if it
Hmm.
is quality, we know that, okay, like this is working pretty well. Like we might be ready to like potentially remove the human in the loop down the road. But it's definitely like an overtime, process where I think it would be probably crazy for someone to just like completely decouple from any human oversight at this stage, but it would probably not be unreasonable at, different points in time for different workflows.
Yeah. Well, what's up next for Farmhand? Like, what are you most excited about as you think about, a couple years out from now? Like, where are you going? What are you hoping to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's really about, connecting with more farmers, helping more farmers, seeing them have success. I was really encouraged by the last year of results we had with our customers, and then this year we brought on a lot of new customers and continue to add customers every week. And for me, it's just fun because like I get more exposed to different farm businesses, different farmers, kind of what they're doing, share what we can do, like see their excitement as, they see results, as they save a bunch of time, see what they do with the time they save. And so for me, it's really just continuing to, scale our impact, help more and more farms, and then, help have an even greater impact on like year two with the farms that we've already been working with. So what are things we can do that maybe we're not yet doing? Because down the road, my ambition for what we're doing is like, I don't want to stop at like website communications and like ordering, right? Like I want to help with all the non-farming stuff. So like that means grants, like, right? That means like getting you
Mhm.
capital. That means like back office, like accounting stuff. That means like different models, like maybe more focused on like events and UPICs and, things like that. So there's a whole lot of places we plan to go so we can, have even greater impact on the non-farming stuff. But I think it builds on what we've already put in place, which is kind of these core like website communications, customer service capabilities. So yeah, if you were to say like what would be success like a year or 2 years down the road, I'd say even more happy customers. Like that would be the greatest validation. But yeah, like that's kind of my foreseeable future.
So if somebody is interested in checking out Farmhand, what's like the three-step process? If they were to go to your website, like how would you be coaching them there to begin working with you? Like what is step one and then what happens then and then what happens then?
Yeah, so you can go to farmhand.partners.com/mydigitalfarmer. There you can get some more context on what Farmhand is. You can book a demo, and that demo is actually with me, at least for the foreseeable future. It's probably
Mhm.
close to breaking my capacity, but we're still at the stage where like I can do the demos with all interested customers. And then if you like what you see and you want to move forward, we have a very lightweight intake process. That intake process just makes sure we understand your farm business so we can create the professional website and professional communications for you. We can set up your, CSA or e-commerce shop appropriately. And then if you've got an existing system you're already on, whether it's like another platform or like spreadsheets, we'll handle the migration into our system. So there's nothing really for you to do, just to kind of confirm the information. And then you'll receive kind of like a welcome message that then guides you through the process of how to use Farmhand. You'll receive the prompts, you'll receive the marketing assets kind of that go alongside of it. And then we'll kind of like handhold you for that initial period up until you're, up and running and kind of in the flow of things. So yeah, it's a lot of people kind of equate like a website makeover, communications makeover, marketing makeover is like this giant project that's like, oh, I don't have time until November to even think about it. But then when we have the conversation and they realize like, oh wow, you're going to do all those things for us and I don't really
Mhm.
have to do much, they're like, all right, let's go.
Let's go.
So
Yeah. And you do it in waves, right? It's not like you do all four things in 2 weeks. Like you're
no,
probably,
exactly,
yeah, like you're,
exactly. Like it
yeah,
it's kind of one at a time, and it can be overwhelming if you're like, hey, I need these 20 things from you, but it's like, no, like
yeah,
I need this one thing, then I can do this thing, then I need this one
yeah,
thing.
yeah. I love how you like poke them. You're prompting and saying, okay, this is the next thing. And I think that's what people just need to hear. They need to be able to give you the bullet points and then you make it look beautiful and put it all together. It's such a this
Yeah, I
this
mean, people
this
are just
that
so busy, like,
yeah, yeah.
and like a lot of people have non-farm jobs, and it's like, I have customers who are like accountants and they're busy during tax season,
Mhm.
so like they couldn't communicate to anyone for like 30 days. And then I have other, customers that are in like sales or like have like other like homeschool jobs or whatever it is. Like people are always doing different things. So I'm very much of the mindset of like, we'll prompt and we're ready when you're ready, but like you're busy, right? And so we're just trying to get this done as efficient for you when you're ready. And then when you give us the inputs, like we go at your pace.
All right. So tell everyone again where they can go to learn about Farmhand.
They can go to farmhand.partners /my digital farmer.
Thanks so much for coming on the show. This has been so fun. And I want to I hope we stay in touch. I know we'll stay in touch.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
excited to see how Farmhand takes its place in the pantheon of other platforms. So thanks so much for all the stuff you shared today.
Thank you for having me. It was a fun conversation.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode, and I think all of you are going to go and sign up for a text messaging app. Today's show notes can be found at mydigitalfarmer.com/263. And if you liked today's episode, please go leave me a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts, or go tell someone you know who's a farmer who needs to hear that this podcast exists. Go tell them about it into a Facebook group or one of your forums, wherever you hang out. Just let them know, hey, have you heard about the My Digital Farmer podcast? It's really good. It teaches farm marketing. You should go check it out. If you want to get onto my email list and have me send you some farm marketing tips every week into your inbox and turn you into a super marketing ninja, or at least get really good at strategy, I have some free stuff to send your way. Get on my email list. Go to mydigitalfarmer.com/subscribe. And don't forget, check me out on Instagram if you're on the Instagrams at mydigitalfarmer. I like to show up in stories. So check me out there. See if I have a tip for you today. Thanks for joining me. Have an awesome week. Remember, I believe in you. I'll talk to you next time.